The warm night air of Campania settled over the open terrace, soft and heavy with the scent of the sea, carrying with it the faint, sweet perfume of myrtle and the lingering memory of the sun. A guest lay on a wide couch wrapped in soft, unbleached linen, resting in the quiet dark of Baiae, the most beautiful and welcoming shore in the whole Roman world. The day was done, and a profound, sheltering peace had fallen over this little town built only for healing and delight. Beside her, on a small ledge of marble, a single terracotta lamp burned low and steady, its golden flames scarcely trembling, casting a long, gentle circle of light across the polished floor of the villa. The stone beneath the couch still held the baked-in warmth of the long summer afternoon, radiating softly upward, a silent comfort to tired limbs. Down below, at the foot of the terraced gardens, the dark sea lay perfectly flat, breathing in and out against the stone steps with a rhythm so slow and quiet it sounded like a sleeper dreaming. There was no urgency there, no rushing tide, only the mild, welcoming water of the bay gently meeting the edge of the world. Nothing had to be done, and nowhere had to be reached. There was only the slow, deep quiet of Baiae, seeping into the very bones. This was the hour of pure and perfect rest, the old Roman ideal of otium, a sweet and guiltless leisure, a laying down of every burden and care. Lying still, she could look out past the edge of the terrace and see the whole slope of the town, terraced down to the water, a soft cascade of white villas and shaded porticos painted with moonlight. Baiae did not sleep in darkness. All along the curve of the shore, the oil lamps of 100 seaside homes still glowed, their reflections trembling in the glassy water of the bay, like a fallen constellation come to rest upon the sea. The gardens that lay between the great houses were thick with rose and myrtle and the dark leaves of olive, releasing their fragrance into the cooling air, and mixed through it all was the clean, sharp smell of salt and the faint, earthy breath of sulphur rising from the ground. Here and there, pale columns of steam drifted slowly upward from the warm springs, catching the starlight for a moment before they vanished into the night. The whole town seemed to be breathing out, letting go a long, slow, collective breath, settling softly into the embrace of the warm hills that curved around it like a sheltering arm. Beneath the gardens and the sleeping villas, beneath the marble pathways and the quiet streets, the earth itself was alive with a gentle, unending warmth. This was the Phlegraean shore, where the ground is a kindly presence, a natural hearth that never quite goes cold, and where hot mineral water wells up warm and clear from the deep rock. The old stories told softly by the poets and the wise women of the coast say that far below these hills lies the great forge of Vulcan, the smith of the gods, and that the heat of the soil and the steam of the springs are only the slow breath of his fires, burning steadily and safely in the dark. It was a comforting thought, the strong, patient god working gently at his craft, his hammer falling in a slow and even beat, keeping the hearth fire of the world alight, and turning the underground rivers into warm and healing pools for the weary people above. There was no menace in that heat, no danger in the steaming earth, only a deep, abiding kindness, a slow, warm heartbeat that rose through the stone and sent the rich waters upward, a quiet gift from the deep places of the world. In the middle of the night, the great bath halls of Baiae stood dark and vast against the starry sky, their domed and vaulted roofs rising along the shore like gentle artificial hills. All through the day they had rung with the echo of voices, the splash of water and the murmur of easy talk. But now they were magnificently still. Inside the huge round hall of the caldarium, the hot pool lay smooth and dark, sending up thick, soft clouds of white steam that curled slowly toward the high ceiling. And in the enclosed warm rooms, the sudatoria, the dry heat, lingered gently in the walls. The heavy marble benches, worn smooth by countless resting bodies, held their warmth quietly in the hushed dark. Somewhere deep below, a single sleepy attendant was banking the furnace fires for the night, drawing the glowing charcoal together with a long iron rake, the soft, rhythmic scrape of it the only sound in the cavernous quiet. The heat ticked faintly in the hollow floors and the thick brick walls, a low and comforting sound, while the whole vast building seemed to breathe, waiting patiently for the dawn, guarding its still warm waters through the long, peaceful hours of the summer night. For those who came to Baiae worn or ailing, seeking a cure in these warm sulphur pools and natural steam caves, the water was not merely hot, it was holy. That water was the home of the water nymphs, the gentle and ancient spirits of the springs, who dwell in the bubbling deeps and soften the sharp minerals into medicine that soothes the skin and eases the aching joints. Beside the most cherished of the healing pools, small shrines had been cut into the living rock, dedicated to Aesculapius, the kindly bearded god of medicine, and to his daughter Hygeia, the bringer of health. That night, in those warm and dripping corridors, dozens of tiny terracotta lamps were left burning at the water's edge, set there by people who had felt their pain float away in the baths. The little flames wavered in the drifting steam, throwing soft shadows across the offerings left in gratitude. Small clay shapes of a mended hand or foot, a few coins tossed into the shallows, quiet prayers sinking into the warm mud. The healing gods felt very close to the surface there, their kindness present in every drop of warm water, watching over the sleeping town with a mild and curing grace. Out beyond the balustrade of the terrace, the Bay of Naples opened wide, a vast, dark mirror holding the whole of the heavens. The water was so calm that night that there was no telling where the sea ended and the sky began. It was one seamless sweep of deep blue and glittering silver. Far across the curve of the bay glimmered the soft warm lights of Puteoli. Across the bay, its great harbour quiet at its quays. And away to the other side lay the dark, sleeping shape of Misenum, where the ships of the fleet rode motionless at anchor in the still water. Out in the deep, the island of Capri rose like a great slumbering beast, a shape of solid night against the horizon guarding the mouth of the bay. Closer in, a single small fishing boat drifted slowly across the glassy water. One little lamp hung at its prow, its light spilling in a long, trembling ribbon of gold across the dark. And the fisherman rested on his oars, letting the gentle current carry him, wrapped in the deep and watery silence of the night. On that coast, the sea was no restless enemy, but a mild companion, smoothed by the sheltering arms of the land. Above all the powers of this shore, it is Venus who holds Baiae dearest and calls it her own. She is the goddess of love, and here she is honoured too, as the lady of the sea-born calm, the gentle patroness of kindly shores and easy voyages, the very spirit of delight that makes the air so soft and the water so welcoming. The people of the town said she walked the shoreline at night, unseen but deeply felt, quieting the waves with a touch of her hand so that no storm should ever break the peace of her favourite place. Under her mild protection, the heavy dignity of the Roman world was set aside. Senators and merchants, soldiers and philosophers all laid off the formal toga and went about in soft, simple tunics, surrendering happily to the ease of the shore. The whole night seemed steeped in her warmth, a tender and sheltering presence that smoothed the lines from a tired brow and whispered to the restless that it was safe now to close the eyes, that the world was beautiful, and that there, for that one night at least, all was entirely well. Just a short walk along the coast lay the still, shallow lagoons of the Lucrine Lake, held apart from the open sea by a narrow spit of sand. Beneath its calm surface were the famous oyster-beds, the pride of the Campanian shore, where all day the oystermen had waded through the warm shallows, tending the ropes and woven baskets hung in the water. That night, they slept on the beach beside their small, drawn-up boats, their hands still smelling of salt and the sea. The oysters of Lucrine, sweet and plump, were the everyday luxury of that place, carried up to the villas on silver dishes and eaten with fresh figs and olives and warm bread, while the dark, rich wine of the Campanian hills was poured out and cut clean with cool spring water. Even then, the memory of such a meal lingered softly in the warm air. The taste of the sea, the sweetness of ripe fruit, the simple, elemental plenty of the Italian earth. It was a shore that fed the body as gently as it rested the mind, a place of easy abundance where the sea gave up its harvest without struggle, and no one lay down hungry. All through the terraced town, the many-tongued crowd of this great resort was sinking now into the same deep and shared slumber. In the high marble villas, the wealthy slept in soft beds, dreaming of quiet gardens and still water. In the plainer quarters behind the baths, the people who kept the town running rested just as soundly. The strong-handed masseurs who had worked the fragrant oils into weary shoulders were asleep. The doctors who had come from Alexandria and Athens to prescribe the waters had laid their minds down at last. The cooks, the bath attendants, the boatmen and the musicians who had played the lyre softly as the sun went down had all crossed the same gentle threshold into sleep. The dark made no distinction there. The rich man and the labourer breathed the same salt air, were warmed by the same kindly earth, and lay beneath the same wide field of stars. The whole busy, glittering machinery of the grandest spa in the empire had quietly wound down and come to rest, gathering its strength in silence for the gentle morning to come. Just to the north, over the low rise of the hills, stood the ancient citadel of Cumae, the oldest of all the Greek cities of Italy. its high stone walls washed pale in the light of the moon. On the height above the sea rose the temple of Apollo, its marble columns faintly shining in the dark, and beneath it, cut deep into the living rock of the cliff, opened the long cavern of the Cumaean Sibyl, the holy prophetess of the sun god. That night, the great trapezoidal passage of the cave lay empty, silent, and wonderfully cool. The wind that sometimes murmurs through its side galleries, once taken for the breath of the god, carrying his prophecies, was altogether still. It was a place of deep and ancient mystery, a hushed wonder spoken of softly all along that coast. Yet it held no fear that night, only the calm, resonant quiet of an old sanctuary resting in the palm of the darkness. The holy places of the shore were slumbering too, their long memory humming faintly in the stone, a gentle and protecting presence laid like a blessing over the whole of the bay. A little further inland, hidden in the wooded bowl of an old and quiet crater, lay the darkest and stillest water of all, Lake Avernus. The thick woods that ringed its shores threw deep black reflections onto its mirror-smooth surface, so motionless it might have been carved from polished stone. The oldest legends called that silent water a doorway to the underworld, a hushed and sacred threshold to the realm of the inferi, the gods below. But there was no terror in the thought that night. It was only a solemn and beautiful old story, a way of honoring the profound stillness of the place. The lake was simply a quiet sanctuary now, wholly at peace beneath the stars, undisturbed by any wind, holding the reflection of the heavens in its dark depths. Around it, the great works of long ago, the tunnels that men had once cut through the soft hills, and the long harbour moles laid out across the water so that ships might pass, stood as silent monuments blending back into the shadowed woods. Everything at Avernus was calm, a sleepy and half-mythical water wrapped in the protecting darkness, keeping the gentle mysteries of the earth and the deep, restful silence of the night. This coast was older than Rome itself, older than the marble villas and the paved roads, resting on a deep bedrock of ancient Greek story. In the sound of the sea washing against the stones was the very sound the wandering heroes had heard in the dawn of the world. They say that Baiae takes its name from Baios, a trusted companion of clever Odysseus, who was laid to rest there on that shore long before history began. And they say that Hercules himself once walked these beaches, driving the great cattle of Geryon across the sand spit of the Lucrine Lake, and easing his own tired and mighty limbs in the warm springs that rose to greet him. The past there was no heavy burden and nothing to fear. It was a soft and comforting layer of tales told beneath the stars, a reminder that this shore had been a place of refuge for 1,000 years and more. The heroes of the old stories had slept here and bathed here and found their peace here, and the sleepers of that night were joined with them in one long, unbroken chain of restful nights. The night deepened and the world grew very still, and above the flat, dark water, the summer stars turned slowly in their vast and silent wheel. 3 bright stars stood high overhead in a wide and gentle triangle, the mark of the warm nights, and between them the pale river of the Milky Way poured softly across the whole arch of the sky, thick and luminous as it never seemed over the noise of the cities. Low in the south, close down over the sea, a long curve of dimmer stars glowed faintly, the great slow shape the old sailors watched for on summer nights. And away in the north, the ever-turning bears wheeled calmly about their fixed and quiet point. They were not fierce that night, those stars. They were only lights, only the familiar and friendly patterns that the darkness brings to anyone lying awake and gazing upward. There were no drawn figures, no bright cluster set apart, only a fine and even scattering of countless quiet fires, turning so slowly that no motion could be seen. And yet the great sky was wheeling all the while, and the long night was passing gently on. And there on the terrace, the small, everyday textures of that warm sea spa night gathered softly around her and held her close. The air smelled of warm marble and myrtle and roses from the garden, of clean salt off the water, and of the faint sweetness of the meal now long cleared away. The soft linen shifted a little against her skin, and the terracotta lamp burning low beside her cast its small, warm glow over the carved wood of the couch, its little flame swaying in the gentlest breath of the sea. She could hear the faint and endless trickle of warm water falling over stone somewhere down the hill, a liquid, soothing sound, repeating in a slow and comforting loop. She could hear the soft hush of the flat sea drawing back and washing forward again, the long, slow breathing of the world. There was nothing left to do, nowhere left to be. The night was a vast and quiet room, warm and dim and kind, and she was perfectly safe within it, held in the gentle hand of the Roman shore. Sleep came then, not as a sudden thing, but as a slow and gradual deepening, a settling, a letting go. The weight of her limbs sank more heavily into the couch. The warmth of the linen wrapped her more completely. And the soft sounds of the night, the trickling water, the breathing sea, the distant single cry of a night bird from the hills, all blended together into one low and seamless hum, more felt than heard. The lamp beside her had burned down to a small, glowing ember, the last warm spark of the day, and it faded now gently, sinking into the soft dark that gathered close around it. The villa, the town, the bay, the warm hills, all of them were quiet. All of them were still, all of them sleeping under the same mild blanket of the summer night. And the gods kept their easy watch. Venus along her shore, the nymphs in their warm springs, the healers by their pools, Vulcan at his slow forge far below. There was nothing to fear that night, nothing to remember, nothing to wait for. There was only the warm air on her skin, the soft linen beneath her, the breath of the sea that had become her own breath, and the deep and gentle dark drawing her down, softly and completely, into the calm, flat, healing waters of sleep, deeply and peacefully at rest in the quiet of Baiae.